Today's video about the Caravan Transporter will start the discussion of transferring large numbers of people to Mars. In some ways you might say that the purpose of the Explorer transporters was to get colonization on Mars started. Both the colonists sent to the Red Planet during the first 4 years of Explorer-only missions, and the equipment and supplies they carried were mostly meant to allow for the testing and development of small-scale systems for future missions to Mars. More specifically, I refer here to ways to make rocket fuel, to supply oxygen and water from Martian sources, to grow food on Mars and Deimos, to get the energy needed for future colonization, etc. Similarly, during years 5 through 8, bulkier equipment that could not be manufactured on Mars, colonists to open businesses on Mars, and in general, a much more diverse group of colonists will be aboard the shuttles to further develop infrastructure, to lay the groundwork for the Martian economy, and to prepare for the arrival of large numbers of colonists, to arrive on the Caravan and Ark transporters. Each Caravan Transporter mission will have one Explorer, one shuttle, and the Caravan Transporter arriving every 6 months, for a total of 108 new colonists per mission. Thus, even the first mission will more than double the number of colonists on Mars from about 80 to about 188. I say about since there will likely be a few births and deaths in these first 8 years. One might hope that after these 108 new colonists settle into their new lives on Mars, a real, if rudimentary economy on Mars will get established, that food, water, and oxygen will be plentiful, that the rate of new construction will be furious, that there will be a variety of healthcare professionals on Mars to provide high-quality, if basic healthcare, and that the way forward on Mars for the next few years will be planned and reasonable. The Caravan Transporters will continue to use the energy source used for the Explorer and Shuttle transporters. The most likely source will still be solar panels, but this may start to be impractical for a ship carrying so many passengers, and the mission to Mars may need to have some kind of nuclear reactor capability on these ships, even if the main source remains the solar panels. I am not sure if there is some sort of limiting size for solar panels for any given size of spacecraft. If my thoughts about cargo carrying capacities of the shuttle versus Caravan transporters become the reality, then the shuttle will actually be less crowded than the Caravan transporters, even if the Caravan is a larger ship. Again, the shuttles may carry bulkier cargo while the Caravans will carry far more people. To make the Caravan missions more comfortable, even with less personal space per passenger, I envision these vessels having both some common use areas for recreation, and also running a few businesses during the flight. I address this latter point next. Both to keep the 100 passengers gainfully employed, and also to serve as a test run for what I envision for the Ark transporters, I would propose that a few businesses be allocated space on the Caravan transporters, and that most of the passengers work at least some of the time in these businesses. The simplest type of business I would foresee would include a general store and restaurants. In addition, passengers on the Caravan can serve part or all of their annual training service in the fleet aboard the vessel. So instead of a small kitchen that would be found on the Explorer and Shuttle transporters, there could be 2 restaurants to provide food. These restaurants would operate as they did at the Earth Embassy, and will on Mars, and will be compensated for the meals by the Confederation. Similarly, a small retailer going to Mars would be available to sell things on the ship, employing passengers as needed. And since the Caravan would likely require a great deal of cleaning and maintenance work, passengers can work as members of the fleet to do this kind of work, or perhaps remote fleet projects. Perhaps given the cramped quarters, children could make up a considerable number of passengers. They would require daycare perhaps, and perhaps some instruction, if AIs aren't doing most of the teaching by then. Again, more tasks for passengers to keep them busy on a long voyage in a somewhat cramped spaceship. Finally, let me note that it will take some time to land 100 new colonists on Mars. So, the Caravan's passengers will have to spend some time in temporary quarters on Deimos. During that time they might provide some labor to continue to construct facilities on that moon, including more quarters for when the 1,000 passenger Ark transporters arrive. The Mars lander or landers will take people down to their home on Mars, but both the people and the new equipment will take a week or two to shuttle down to the planet's surface.